In November 2025, the 30th United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP30, convened in the vibrant city of Belém, Brazil. This historic gathering brought together representatives from nearly every nation on Earth, all converging at the gateway to the Amazon. The choice of Belém was no accident. It was a deliberate reminder of the Amazon's critical role in regulating the planet's climate and the urgent need to protect it. Here, at the edge of the world's largest rainforest, the stakes could not have been higher. The Amazon, often called the lungs of the Earth, is both a symbol and a frontline in the fight against climate change. Its preservation is essential not just for Brazil, but for the entire planet. This year's summit was more than just another meeting. It was a critical checkpoint for global climate action. Leaders, scientists, activists, and negotiators debated fiercely over how to accelerate emissions cuts, scale up funding for green technologies, and protect vulnerable ecosystems. The sense of urgency was palpable, as delegates acknowledged that the window for meaningful action is rapidly closing. COP summits are where the world's climate ambitions are tested and transformed into binding agreements. These gatherings shape not only environmental policies, but also the economic futures of nations, influencing everything from energy investments to agricultural practices. Yet, this year, a glaring absence cast a long shadow over the proceedings. The United States, under President Donald Trump, chose not to send an official delegation. The empty American seat was more than a missing chair. It was a powerful statement that reverberated through the halls and corridors of the summit. The absence of the world's largest economy and one of its biggest polluters dominated conversations, both on and off the record. Delegates and observers alike speculated about the implications for global cooperation and the future of international climate agreements. The empty U.S. seat sent shockwaves through the conference, raising doubts about America's willingness to lead, or even participate, in the global response to climate change. For many, it was a stark reminder of the fragility of international commitments. Delegates wondered aloud, would other nations step up to fill the leadership void? Could Europe, China, or emerging economies rally the world toward more ambitious action? Or would the lack of U.S. engagement stall progress at a moment when unity was most needed? The uncertainty was palpable. Some feared that without American leadership, hard-fought climate goals might slip further out of reach. Others saw an opportunity for new alliances and bold commitments from unexpected quarters. The world's largest economy was missing at a pivotal moment, leaving a leadership vacuum that threatened to undermine years of progress. The symbolism of the empty seat was impossible to ignore. Yet despite the uncertainty, the climate conversation pressed on. Delegates from around the globe continued to negotiate, collaborate, and push for solutions, determined to keep the momentum alive, with or without Washington's support. The symbolism of Belém, and the empty American chair, underscored both the urgency and the complexity of the global climate challenge. It was a vivid illustration of how political decisions in one country can ripple across the world, affecting the fate of millions. As the sun set over the Amazon, the stage was set for a summit defined as much by absence as by action, a turning point that would test the world's resolve to confront the climate crisis, together or apart. Into the void left by federal absence on the world stage stepped California Governor Gavin Newsom, a figure whose presence at COP30 was impossible to ignore. As the most prominent American at the summit, Newsom became the de facto face of U.S. climate ambition, filling a leadership vacuum that many had feared would undermine American credibility. Representing the America is All In coalition, he stood shoulder to shoulder with a diverse alliance of governors, mayors, business leaders, and advocates, all united by a single message. America's commitment to climate action endures, no matter who occupies the White House. Newsom embodied the determination of U.S. states, cities, and businesses to pursue ambitious climate goals. Even as federal policy wavered, he spoke passionately about the power of local action, highlighting how subnational actors were stepping up to fill the gap left by Washington. His packed schedule was a whirlwind of speeches, high-level panels, and bilateral meetings with global leaders, each encounter reinforcing the message that American climate ambition was alive and well at the grassroots and state level. Newsom's efforts were aimed at proving that the United States, through its states and communities, remained a vital player in the global climate movement. He rallied activists and inspired hope among those worried about America's direction. As the leader of the U.S. Climate Alliance, Newsom brought together a coalition of states representing over half the U.S. economy, showing that collective state action could drive real progress. He reinforced the idea that states could and would continue to push forward, even as Washington retreated from the international stage. One of the most powerful moments of his trip was his journey deep into the Amazon rainforest, where he met with indigenous leaders who have long been the guardians of these vital ecosystems. By spotlighting those on the front lines of environmental protection, Newsom underscored the importance of global solidarity and respect for traditional knowledge in the fight against climate change. This hands-on personal diplomacy stood in stark contrast to the absence of the White House, highlighting a new kind of American leadership, one rooted in action, partnership, and empathy. In many ways, Newsom became America's unofficial climate envoy, forging relationships and building trust with international partners. He argued that California's aggressive climate policies, innovative technologies, and economic strength made it a model for the world, a living laboratory for solutions that could be scaled globally. The summit became a showcase for a different America, one still innovating, collaborating, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible for a clean energy future, regardless of federal politics. Newsom's message was clear. America's climate story is bigger than Washington politics. The world was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. California was ready to lead, showing that hope, innovation, and determination can light the way forward for the planet. Newsom didn't hold back, openly criticizing President Trump's decision to skip COP30. He called it a failure of leadership, accusing the administration of abandoning America's climate responsibilities. Newsom argued Trump's policies favored oil interests over the planet and American workers. He painted a picture of two Americas, one retreating, one pushing forward with bold climate action. The summit became a stage for this internal U.S. conflict, with Newsom challenging the White House on the world stage. Newsom warned that America's absence handed the future to China, reframing climate action as an economic and security imperative. He argued that clean energy leadership would define the 21st century economy, and that China was racing ahead in renewables and technology. By stepping back, the U.S. risked losing jobs, markets, and global influence. Newsom's message: climate leadership is economic leadership. He positioned California as proof that environmental responsibility and prosperity can go hand in hand. The warning was clear: America can't afford to forfeit the clean energy race. The world heard a call to re-engage before it's too late. The summit spotlighted the stakes of ceding ground to global rivals. Newsom came armed with data, touting California's clean energy achievements. He highlighted that California, the world's fourth-largest economy, now runs on 2/3 clean energy. In 2025, the state's grid ran on 100% non-fossil fuel sources for part of most days, a milestone few can match. Newsom argued this proved economic growth and climate action can go hand in hand. California, he said, is a blueprint for a prosperous green economy. The message: real-world results, not just promises. California's example challenged the narrative that environmental rules hurt jobs. The Trump administration fired back, with White House spokesperson Taylor Rogers mocking Newsom and dismissing his trip. Rogers pointed to California's high energy prices, arguing that green policies burden citizens. The administration labeled the global climate agenda a green energy scam, vowing to protect Americans from costly green dreams. This clash exposed the deep divide: Newsom's vision of a renewable future versus Trump's defense of fossil fuels. The war of words was more than political theater. It was a battle over America's energy future. Each side claimed to defend American interests, but their visions couldn't be further apart. The world watched as U.S. leaders fought over the nation's climate path. The summit itself wasn't free from controversy. From the very beginning, tensions were high as various groups gathered to voice their concerns. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of anticipation and skepticism. The White House amplified claims that rainforest was cleared for a conference highway, accusing organizers of hypocrisy. This accusation struck a chord with environmentalists who were already wary of the summit's true intentions. Brazilian officials denied the allegations, insisting sustainability was a priority. They showcased various initiatives aimed at preserving the rainforest, hoping to quell the growing discontent. Still, the controversy cast a shadow, fueling critics who saw the summit as performative. Protesters held signs and chanted slogans, while media outlets provided critical coverage, questioning the summit's effectiveness. The debate highlighted a core dilemma: how to hold massive climate events without harming the environment. Organizers faced the challenge of balancing the need for large-scale discussions with the environmental impact of such gatherings. For skeptics, it was proof of a flawed process. They argued that the very act of holding such a large event contradicted the summit's goals. For supporters, a logistical challenge to overcome. They believed that with careful planning and innovative solutions, the summit could still achieve its objectives. The highway story became a distraction, but also a symbol of the scrutiny facing climate diplomacy. It underscored the complexities and contradictions inherent in global environmental efforts. The White House used it to undermine both the summit and its American participants. This move added another layer of political tension, making it clear that the path to meaningful climate action is fraught with obstacles. Newsom wasn't the only American in Belém. Former Washington Governor Jay Inslee and other state leaders formed a shadow delegation, assuring the world that much of America remained committed to climate action. They shared best practices and built alliances, countering the silence from Washington. Meanwhile, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, speaking from Greece, denounced COP30 as a hoax. The split screen was stark subnational leaders promoting cooperation, federal officials rejecting the process. America's deep polarization was on full display. Two competing narratives, hope and skepticism, vied for the world's attention. The question, which voice would define America's future? COP30 exposed America's climate divide to the world. Newsom's diplomacy clashed with Trump's absence, revealing a nation at a crossroads. One vision sees climate action as an opportunity for innovation and leadership, the other as a threat to sovereignty and prosperity. The stakes are global. America's choice will shape the climate fight for decades. Will the U.S. lead, follow, or obstruct? The answer lies not in summits, but in the choices of its people. As the world moves on from Belém, America's role remains uncertain. The future of the climate, and America's place in it, hangs in the balance.